I spent 8 years, saving every paycheck, cutting corners wherever I could, dreaming of the day I would hold the keys to my own place. 3 years ago, that dream came true when I bought a modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet, suburban neighborhood. It was not much, but it was mine. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every moment I spent there filled me with pride. That little house represented freedom, independence, everything I had worked so hard to build. I never imagined the person who would try to rip it away from me would be the woman who raised me. 6 months ago, I received legal papers in the mail. My own mother was suing me for ownership of my house. But before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you have ever dealt with family drama that turned legal, hit that like button and subscribe, because you are going to want to hear how this ends. Trust me, the courtroom showdown was unlike anything I could have imagined. My name is Clifton, and I am 32 years old. I work as a construction project manager, a job I fought hard to get after, years of working my way up from basic labor positions. The road to that house was not easy. Nothing in my life ever has been, especially when it comes to my mother. Her name is Barbara. She is 58 now, a former accountant who spent most of her career working for a small firm downtown. Growing up, our relationship was never warm. She was controlling, critical, always comparing me to other kids who seemed to have their lives together while I was just trying to survive. When my father died in a car accident when I was 19, something in her shifted. The little warmth that existed between us evaporated. She became bitter, resentful, as if his death was somehow my fault for existing. I remember her words echoing through our cramped apartment whenever I talked about my dreams. "You will never amount to anything. You are wasting your time. You are just like your father, all talk and no action." Those words cut deeper than any physical wound ever could. By the time I turned 22, I had saved enough to move into a tiny rundown apartment across town. The day I told her I was leaving, she stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and said, "You will never amount to anything without me." I swore to myself that day that I would prove her wrong. For 8 years I worked like a machine. I took extra shifts, skipped vacations, lived on cheap meals, and second-hand furniture. Every dollar I earned went into a savings account with one goal in mind: buying my own home. When I finally had enough for a down payment, I started house hunting. The process was exhausting, but the moment I walked into that 2-bedroom house on Maple Street, I knew it was the one. It needed work, sure, but it had good bones. The price was $280,000, and after months of negotiations and paperwork, it was mine. The day I closed on the house, I sat in the empty living room and cried. Not sad tears, but tears of relief, of accomplishment, of finally feeling like I had done something right. I invited a few friends over for a small housewarming party. I even sent my mother an invitation, hoping maybe this achievement would make her see me differently. She did not come. Instead, she sent a cold text message that read, "Do not expect me to bail you out when you cannot pay the mortgage." I tried not to let it bother me. I had learned a long time ago not to expect much from her. For almost 3 years, life in that house was peaceful. I threw myself into fixing it up, painting walls, refinishing floors, planting a small garden in the backyard. It became my sanctuary. Then 4 months before the lawsuit, something strange happened. Barbara started calling me regularly. At first I thought something was wrong. She would ask how I was doing, tell me she had been thinking about our relationship, say she wanted to make amends. I was skeptical, of course. Decades of emotional distance do not just disappear overnight. But part of me, the part that still wanted a mother, let my guard down. She started visiting the house. The first time she came over, she walked through every room, touching the walls, admiring the renovations. "You have done well for yourself, son," she said, with what seemed like genuine pride. I wanted to believe her. She asked about the house often after that. "Do you have the deed somewhere safe? How much do you still owe on the mortgage? What is your interest rate?" At the time, I thought she was just being a concerned parent. I gave vague answers, uncomfortable with how personal her questions were getting, but I did not think much of it. One afternoon I came home from work to find her standing in my home office. She had her phone out, and I caught her taking pictures of documents on my desk. My property tax papers were sitting there, along with some mortgage statements I had left out. When I asked what she was doing, she smiled and said, "I just wanted to see how much you are paying. I am proud of you." I felt uneasy, but I let it go. That was my first mistake. Then, on a Friday morning in late spring, everything shattered. I was getting ready for work when I heard a knock at the door. A man in a suit handed me a large envelope, marked certified mail. I signed for it, confused, and closed the door. When I tore it open and saw the words "Complaint for Declaratory Judgment," my stomach dropped. The plaintiff was Barbara. The defendant was me. She was suing me for ownership of my house. I read through the document 3 times, my hands shaking more with each pass. She claimed she had given me $50,000 as a down payment for the house. She alleged that I had promised to put her name on the deed and then refused to do so. She was asking the court to declare her a co-owner of the property. None of it was true. Not a single word. I grabbed my phone and called her immediately. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. I sent a text message, my fingers fumbling over the screen. "Mom, what is this? Why are you suing me?" An hour passed before she responded. Her message was short and cold. "Talk to my lawyer. You know what you did." I stared at those words until they blurred. I did not know what I did because I had not done anything. By Monday morning, I was sitting in the office of Douglas Brennan, a real estate attorney someone at work had recommended. Douglas was in his mid-50s, with graying hair and a calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease. He read through the complaint carefully, his expression growing more serious with each page. When he finally looked up, he said, "Your mother is claiming she gave you $50,000 and that you promised to add her to the deed. Do you have any documentation that disproves this?" I told him the truth. "She never gave me a dime. Every cent of that down payment came from my savings. I have bank statements, pay stubs, everything." Douglas nodded. "Good. But I need to warn you, Clifton. If your mother has fabricated evidence to support her claims, this could get very ugly. We need to be prepared for that." Over the next few days, I gathered every financial document I could find. Bank statements going back a decade, pay stubs from every job I had worked, mortgage paperwork, tax returns. I handed it all over to Douglas, confident that the truth would be enough. But Douglas gave me a reality check. Evidence is important, but so is narrative. If your mother can convince the judge that she is a loving parent who got betrayed, we are going to have to fight hard. That night I sat alone in my living room, the same room where I had cried tears of joy 3 years earlier. Now all I felt was a crushing sense of betrayal. This was not about money. This was about control. This was about her trying to punish me for daring to succeed without her. I looked around at the walls I had painted, the floors. I had refinished the life I had built, and I made a promise to myself. I was not going to let her take this from me. The weeks leading up to the trial were brutal. Barbara had hired a lawyer named Gregory Ashford, a well-known attorney in town who specialized in family disputes. He had a reputation for being aggressive and winning cases that seemed unwinnable. When Douglas told me who we were up against, I felt my confidence waver. But Douglas reassured me. Reputation does not mean anything if the facts are not on his side. The discovery phase began, and that is when things got truly disturbing. Gregory submitted evidence on behalf of my mother that stopped me cold. First, there was a photocopy of a check for $50,000 dated exactly 3 years ago, around the time I closed on the house. The check was supposedly from Barbara's account. Then there were emails. Dozens of them, allegedly exchanged between Barbara and me discussing the arrangement. In these emails, I supposedly thanked her for the money and promised to add her name to the deed once the paperwork was finalized. Finally, there was a witness statement from a woman named Sharon, who claimed to be a longtime friend of Barbara. Sharon swore she had been present when Barbara handed me the check and heard me promise to include her on the title. I stared at the evidence in disbelief. None of it was real. I told Douglas immediately. That check, I do not know what it is, but it was not made out to me. Those emails, I never sent them. That is not even my email address. And Sharon, I have never met anyone by that name in my life. Douglas listened carefully, taking notes. Then we are going to prove it. He hired a digital forensics expert named Marcus to analyze the emails. Marcus was a wiry guy in his 30s who spent hours poring over the metadata. After 2 days, he came back with his findings. These emails are fabricated. The metadata shows they were created within the last few months, not 3 years ago. Someone went to a lot of trouble to make them look authentic, but they messed up the timestamps. Next, Douglas requested Barbara's full banking records through a subpoena. When they arrived, we discovered something interesting about that $50,000 check. It was not made out to me at all. It was a transfer from one of Barbara's savings accounts to her checking account. She had moved her own money around, and then doctored the paperwork to make it look like she had given it to me. As for Sharon, Douglas scheduled a deposition. The woman showed up looking nervous, avoiding eye contact. Under questioning, her story started to fall apart. She could not remember basic details. What month did this happen? What was Clifton wearing? Where exactly did this exchange take place? Her answers were vague and contradictory. Finally, Douglas asked her how much Barbara was paying her to lie. She broke down and admitted Barbara had offered her $2,000 to make the statement. Despite all of this, I felt the weight of the situation crushing me. My mother had not just lied. She had spent months planning this. She had created fake emails, manipulated financial documents, and recruited someone to commit perjury. This was not a spur-of-the-moment mistake. This was calculated, deliberate, and cruel. The personal toll was just as devastating. Barbara started telling family members her version of events. She painted me as an ungrateful son who had stolen money from her and then cut her out of my life. Some relatives believed her.